And we had some bad times, but look at all the good times we had, and even intermixed. I was lucky enough to see the 70s team that won the UEFA Cup and the League Cup, and then the 80s team that won 2 FA Cups and the UEFA Cup again, and other events. Even 9 years ago when they beat Chelsea under Ramos to win the League Cup. That was a massive moment, because it felt like the club was finally getting back some sense of pride, and I think is that the idea, the importance for me was to get into what it is, why people care about this football club, why it is not another United or another City or another Town or another Rovers. It's Tottenham Hotspur. The name itself tells you we're talking about something different, something special.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I chose the club. I did about a year's worth of research before choosing the club that I was going to support when the Premier League really became a thing over here in the States. It was something I wanted to be a part of. I've dove in with both feet. Simon, I think, will attest to that. It wasn't. I knew I didn't want to be a front-running fan. There were so many here that Americans have an insatiable desire for instant gratification, but I was not going to be a front runner. City had just won the title in an amazing last day of the season, popping in a goal at the death.
12th minute of injury time, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And United, obviously, they are the New York Yankees of the Premier League, for lack of a better term. Chelsea were on a roll, Arsenal were on a roll. You didn't want to be a part of something that was already successful, but you didn't want to be a part of anything that was, be a part of a team that maybe was soon going to be relegated either. So Tottenham kind of fit the mold of what I was looking for. Plus, when I started doing individual player research and ran across Dave Mackay, that was it. I was hooked, line and sinker. I was a Tottenham fan, and have been ever since, obviously. You have had the opportunity over the course of your fandom to experience so much, and now you've had the opportunity to write this wonderful book. Did the research and the interview process and all the personal time that you invested into this book, do you feel it brought you closer to the club emotionally, or is that something that you purposefully stay away from, the emotional side?
It's interesting because professionally I couldn't be emotionally connected in that I was a reporter for 25 plus years, going to matches and having to write a straight match report, and if it was Spurs 0, Manchester United 1, the story was Manchester United winning, not Tottenham losing.
Right.
So I view games in a different way because I had to, because it was my job. So now I'm no longer an on-the-ground reporter, as I'm basically a sports editor. My fandom has come back a little bit. I'm much more involved. I always wanted them to win and was disappointed when they didn't. But it feels more real now. More, I think, possibly because of my boy, because of Ollie, because it's two of us, and also Emma, my daughter. She wants to go, and I'm taking her to the Brighton game in a week or so because it's her turn, and it's important that I spread it around. But yeah, I did, and it's one of the things that I don't normally get emotional. But reading back some of the things I'd written, it actually had a tug on me that I didn't expect. I'm supposed to be one of those sort of typical hard-boiled hacks, as we call them. A tabloid red-top reporter who's got no emotion and doesn't care about these sort of things, because it's nothing could be further than the truth with anyone. But I did come out of it feeling more connected, more part of that 118 years of history at Hart Lane, just like many fans do, I think. And I think I was keen to try to make that essential and at the core of the book as well, that sense that everybody is a part of it. The bricks and mortar may have gone, but what they stood for will never go, as long as there are people around who either were there and could go there themselves, or can share the memories as they were told by their fathers and grandfathers going forward. And hopefully that will still be the case going, 20, 30, 40, 50 years on, long after I'm sadly gone and not longer around.
So, Martin, we talk about heroes of the club, and you've obviously spoken to many, many over the years, and I think we've already established who our favourite player is. And when you spoke to Glenn Hoddle, he was very elaborate in talking about the season when we went down 76-77 and how much that hurt him, that he will be remembered as part of the squad that went down, albeit the fact that we came back up very quickly. Was that your low as a Spurs supporter through this long journey that we've been on?
Well, probably, but then again, I was only a kid. I was only 10 when they got relegated. And so when you're 10, nothing lasts that long, does it? Everything moves. There's always something next. Yeah. There's a next thing. So whilst it was bad at the time, I got on with it. It didn't kill me. I was quite. And then of course they came back the next season. Narrowly, it was a real squeak, and they had
it was
draw at Southampton in Brighton rather in the final game to stay up. Obviously Mullery was in charge of Brighton at the time, so he probably was quite happy to see Spurs go up, given his still enduring love for the club. Lows, there've been a few. I think I remember the season that they were really awful in the Premier League. Would have been 93-4, and they went up. I went up to Oldham right at the end of the season, and they won 2-0 to stay up. And it was like such a relief. I think Vinnie Samway scored one, and I'm not sure who scored the other. It might have been David Howes. But they've been awful all season, and those were pretty miserable time. Throughout that period in the 90s, when they weren't just bad, they were really, really ordinary, and they never looked as if they were going to ever go back amongst the big boys. And it makes you actually feel better now. I think you tend, having seen that as a supporter, you get more out of what you see now. I mean, this may end up being a disappointing season, but the last two seasons have been so positive, so un-Tottenham. This is what Tottenham is, as opposed to what they have become. It's a new way of doing, a new belief within the team, which everyone feels. And I think it's why you've got to be realistic. We've been poor at times, but now we're a proper club again, with proper players and a proper manager and an off-field setup, which is exactly what you want a team to be. And that means you might have the odd poor season, but you don't have a four-season blip. You come again, and you come stronger. And obviously with this new stadium that's being built, the platform is there for something truly fantastic and special, with a manager who clearly wants to build it, with players who in the main want to be part of it. The centre forward is the perfect example. The number that matters to Harry Kane is 267, which is one more than Jimmy Greaves scored for Spurs. Yeah. And he wants to beat that record. He doesn't want to go to Barcelona. He doesn't want to go to Real Madrid. He doesn't want to go to Manchester United. He wants to play for Tottenham.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to see. That makes everything, I think, for a fan to see that commitment and to see these players playing that Real Madrid game the other week. That's what Tottenham's what you want the club to be about. Yeah. Those performances, those nights. That's exactly it. That's what makes you come back.
We had a pretty good start to the season, and you've mentioned briefly there the Champions League group stage success that we've had. You talked about a new belief in this team, and I firmly believe that. We live in an era of social media, and if there are 90% of the people out there seem to be lemmings, so if one person jumps off the bridge, everybody's going to follow, and we've seen a lot of that here recently with the little purple patch of fixtures they've had the last 6, I believe. Was it 1 win, 2 draws, 3 losses? We're all disappointed in those results, and we've already lost as many matches this season as we did all of last season. But is this Pochettino project something that is still way ahead of schedule, in your opinion?
Oh, I think so, yeah. The fact is that people are disappointed when Tottenham don't win. That says everything. It's changed the dynamic of the way people are approaching the club. People, other teams want all of Tottenham's players. Well, that's a good sign, not a bad sign. Doesn't mean they're going to sell them. I mean, Daniel will do what he has to do. But genuinely, there's a positivity about the club. This was always going to be a tricky season. And you play the whole entire campaign away from home. It's not going to be easy. And there were a few early troubles at Wembley, and then they've had a bit of a poor run of results. They won a few away games earlier. Now they've had a run of performances have been a bit poorer. But I'm not going to get het up by it. You know, given the rubbish that was served up for years and years and years, I can cope with this disappointment. In truth, you know, perspective, please. Let's be realistic about what you are. Also, this Manchester City team are phenomenal. They're going to win the league by 20 points.
Yeah. So
it doesn't matter what, they're going to end up breaking all the records. They could easily get 100 points this year. They're fantastic. So maybe, you know, it wouldn't have mattered what we did. We weren't going to beat them this year. But you might get a sense of, could it have been last year? But last year's the best, you know, massive record point score. Never been close to that in the Premier League era. Previous year had been terrific until the last couple of games when they stopped playing because they couldn't win the league anymore. Rather than it wasn't they folded because under the pressure of coming second. No, they stopped playing because they couldn't win the league anymore. Because that was their focus. They believed until that Chelsea game that they could still win the league. You know, these things happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting if you compare this season to last season. Same point. We're only 2 points behind, but everyone's in meltdown. And when we went into this small blip of 1 win, 2 draws, 3 losses, we were on 20 points. And we're at 25 right now. Last season, we were on 19, 27. Granted, there's a 2-point differential there. But right after that is when we started kicking into high gear. Granted, we got some injuries now. Now we're going to be without Sanchez for a few games. And I'm not saying it's all going to come back, because we know how the second half of last season went with that glorious run of wins. And obviously the record at Hart Lane in the final season is the fitting tribute. Right. It's going to be hard to replicate that. Do we focus now on a really strong run in the Champions League and the FA Cup? Because as you say, you're right. City is going to run away with this. What is our option? What's our best option?
Well, you want to be in the Champions League, so therefore the top. You can't just throw away the league and say that it doesn't matter, because it's going to come down to a dogfight. It looks as though City and United will be the top 2, which means there's 2 places between 4 clubs. Now Chelsea are playing quite well at the moment, but Liverpool are a bit flaky defensively. They had a good little run. Arsenal have had a good little run, and then they've lost today to United, which will hurt them. So it's all very, very catchable still. I wouldn't be overly concerned, but I do think you'll find that he will pick a stronger team from the FA Cup than he might have done. He may now put a lot of faith in trying to actually get that bit of silverware and turn them into a team that's won something. Are they good enough to win the Champions League when everyone's fit and firing? No, I don't think so. But they are good enough to get into the quarterfinals, and once you're there, who knows? Yeah. You know, you hope you don't get Bayern Munich in the draw next Friday, or following Friday, whenever the draw is. Yeah, because if you win the group with Real Madrid, you want to get a soft team in the last 16, don't you? Really, you think you deserve that rather than a really tough draw. But that's what a draw is a draw. So you've got to deal with it and live with it and see how you get on. And it's a different competition in the knockout phase as well. The better teams get better because they focus on them and they know what they're doing. So it's going to take a hell of an arse to go into the really deep in that tournament. But to dare is to do. I guess you've got to try and see what you can achieve. Otherwise, there's no point in playing.
We've got 2 draws coming up. We got Champions League. Was that next Friday? Yep. And isn't FA Cup 3rd round tomorrow? Second round's going on this weekend.
It'll certainly be this weekend. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Wow. And on the back of the draw for the World Cup, so it's a week of draws. And yes, you beat me to it. Sorry, there was no pun intended. Oh dear. Ken, well, you got another question for Martin?
Yeah, really quickly. How important is it? We've talked about,